welcome to this month's Fintech Firebrand. I'm Virginie O'Shea, founder of Firebrand Research, and I'm here to chat to you about this month's Fintech and finreg news. Now, one of the hottest topics this month has been the extension of trading hours in the US. Four different market infrastructures have thus far applied to extend their trading hours out to some even as long as 24 hours, others at 22 hours, I believe. So the exchanges in question are the new 24X exchange, 24X National Exchange, which got approval to launch by the SEC last year. We've also got SIBO applying to extend its hours, NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, I think was the latest that has applied. Now, it's a relatively complex process to get approvals for the hours to be extended. So there are multiple approval processes they have to go through, not just with the regulator, not just with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Although I don't think everyone has been approved by the SEC as yet. It's interesting to see that so much discussion around extending trading, because there's been, as I probably mentioned before, pushback from some market participants on that front. But certainly that four exchanges in the US are now doing it. There's probably going to be more applying in the near future as well. But one of the interesting developments is, from a market data standpoint, the Securities Information Processes Committees, the SIP as they are known in the US, actually voted against approving the extension of trading hours at these four exchanges. What's interesting is that the exchanges themselves voted against their competitors extending their trading hours. So one wonders what will happen next in terms of approvals. Definitely, there's going to be a lot of discussion about this topic in the coming months. It will be interesting to see what the various perspectives of the different market participants out there. Some have welcomed this extension, obviously. A lot of the reasoning behind the move has been to extend opening hours for foreign investors, such as those in Asia, to trade in the US markets more actively. There's also been discussion about expanding for retail investors in the US and expanding their hours for them as well, given that markets like crypto are 24/7. So definitely one to watch this year. I think it was one of our top 10 trends not top 10 trends, but trends for the year with regards to things that will impact post-trade, because certainly if we look at it from the perspective of the practicalities of extending those hours, you're going to have to see clearing and settlement extend its opening hours as well to compensate for the changes, particularly if volumes increase from a foreign direct investment standpoint. So we will see a lot more discussion about the plumbing aspects if these approvals do come through eventually. One of the challenges here is also in terms of compliance. Regulatory developments, you have to have the ability to trade report throughout the night as well. So there's an impact on compliance. There's obviously an impact on risk management, and there's an impact on post-trade. So very far-reaching consequences of this move. So lots of things to discuss on that front into the rest of 2025. Another big financial market infrastructure development of note during the start of March was the issues experienced by the Target 2 and Target 2 securities systems at the European level, operated by the European Central Bank. T2 is the payments platform for across the region, and T2S, as it's known, is the pan-European settlement platform. Now, both of these systems were impacted by an incident that caused issues with regards to communication internally and externally, that meant those systems were offline, and there was an outage from around about 10 a.m. in the morning until past 6 p.m. in the evening. So obviously that delayed a lot of core processes, including settlements and payments, and it also pushed into later cycles things like auto-collateralization as well. So there was a huge impact there, lots of discussion. Given we've had the Digital Operational Resilience Act come into force at the start of this year, operational resilience is top of mind for everybody. And we're also moving towards a shortened settlement cycle. So definitely a lot to think about in terms of if we were on T+1, there'd be a lot more volume going through the T2S platform for that matter. So certainly we need to think about recovery times. That was a long time for the industry to to be offline with regards to its payments and its settlements. So certainly we need to think more about how to address those issues, and if there are alternative platforms that firms are reliant on also. So lots of contingency planning, business continuity, and the like are definitely going to be lots of discussions about that. We've seen a number of outages this month, actually. We've also seen LSEG's FX platform that had an outage as well this month, and there's a lot of discussion about generally operational resilience across the globe. I know it's top of mind for every regulator at the moment, regardless of political affiliation. So certainly a topic that will keep running and running into the rest of this year. And an ongoing development, I guess, starting in the US, has been the deregulatory agenda. We are seeing a lot of changes within the administration and within a lot of the different organizations at the top of the regulatory pinnacle in the US market. We're also seeing some changes elsewhere. In the UK, the FCA has made some cuts and changes. Sadly, one of the things that the FCA seems to have backed away from is its diversity, equity and inclusion policies. So certainly they had quite a vigorous agenda there. They got quite a lot of pushback from the industry, and it seems that they have slowed down or halted that particular program. Certainly that's something that's going on across the US as well, from a DEI perspective within banks and within state level regulators too. So interesting to see. There's also been some delays in the approvals process for people at the top of the various regulators. So we've got interim heads of the SEC and the CFTC at the moment. We are still waiting for a confirmation hearing date for Atkins, is it Paul Atkins, who was going to be taking over from what Gary Gensler was doing at the top of the SEC. At the moment, we have Commissioner Ueda as interim head. He is making some changes, but he is in somewhat of a holding pattern until the new SEC chair takes over. So certainly interesting to see how long that process will take. There seems to be a lot of pausing. We've seen a lot of budget cutting. What kind of budgets being cut? What will that mean for enforcement activity? Will we see a massive drop in that? What will that mean for investor protection in those markets? Now, we've seen obviously some degree of bleeding into other markets. There's been a lot of discussion in Europe about reducing red tape, reducing bureaucracy. Whether that happens or not is another question, I would guess, with regards to regulatory changes, but it's certainly part of the EU's Savings and Investments Union efforts, which took over from the CMU. So certainly we are going to have a lot of discussions about the future of regulation, where regulation can be cut back if necessary, and it will be interesting to see the different tactics different regulators across the globe take on that front. Now, my final thoughts for the month are reflecting that there was International Women's Day at the start of the month, and we're also supposed to be Women's Month, Women's History Month as well. Certainly, there's been a lot of fanfare celebrating female employees by a lot of financial institutions. Interesting to see that some of those have also been cutting back on their DEI policies, as I mentioned earlier. So what does that mean for women's rights? What does it mean for protections within the workplace? And what does it mean for the future with regards to women in the workplace? There's a lot of questions that I have. Certainly, it is quite frustrating to see backpedaling on DEI. Definitely, we had made a lot of progress on that front in some areas, not so much in others. We have seen that this year the UK was judged to have slipped backwards in terms of overall gender pay and the pay gap, which is something that hopefully will be monitored going forward. But if we do see a reversal in terms of monitoring these statistics or government bans, like in the US, looking at this kind of data, that's going to set us back quite some time, possibly years back into the past with regards to this agenda. So definitely good to celebrate your female employees, good to celebrate some of the progress we've made, but also we need to take a long, hard look at the industry and see if we are future-proofing it. half of the population is female. So you want the industry to reflect the future and, reflect the industry that it's trying to serve from the investor and the consumer perspective. So certainly a lot of things that people really need to think about. Diverse teams are also much more helpful when it comes to risk management. They avoid biases in terms of if you have everybody from the same background, the same gender, the same age group, it's not going to be very helpful in terms of correlation risk there. So certainly a lot of things we need to be asking ourselves in the light of both IWD and Women's History Month, but also in general, we need to think about this and what it means for the future of the industry, particularly if we are going to head into a global financial crisis, as some have been predicting. We're due one. It'll be interesting to see what happens on that front this year.